Hello and welcome to Property Mastermind podcast with Hilary Saxon and Bob Anderson. Today, talking the pros and cons of developing remotely. Bob and I will unpack the reasons you might want to develop remotely and the reasons you might not, and leave you feeling well informed to make your own decision, but we'll definitely give you our opinion. So let's jump on into episode 102. And welcome to episode 102, the pros and cons of developing remotely. What's that, Bob?
I thought the last one we did was 100.
It is, but I'm missing episode 101 because...
Now I remember that deal you did with Gary Vaynerchuk.
Gary Vaynerchuk has promised to be on my podcast 101, and I don't know whether I want to bring him on this one or mine when I relaunch it, which is a more global platform versus this being just an Australian one.
When you launch your new book.
Which is out, seriously, I think the 24th of June. So close. Anyone wanting a copy of 3 Wines in How to Increase Your Self-Confidence Today Without the Hangover tomorrow, let me know. Send me an email and you'll go on the waiting list. It's pretty exciting. I can't wait to launch it. Hey?
I think that might be a better one for Gary because it is global and it's a bigger subject than
it is
property development in Australia. Oh, well, never mind.
Maybe
I can do a deal with Gary.
Maybe you could. Well,
number 200.
I haven't. I should play it, actually. We might even play the video where he says...
where you flew all the way to NZ from Australia.
To ask him.
To be head of the line, to sprint.
Yep.
And up on stage. Yeah.
That's tenacity for you.
That is tenacity, hey.
Yep.
Wow.
Can't wait for things to happen. You've got to make them happen. But now I'm stuck in a quandary. But anyway, I will make that decision very soon. So, Bob.
Yeah.
I've got a few notes that I've written down over here.
Okay.
And both you and I develop remotely, and you probably have done
well, we are at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure you've done tons of remote development in your past roles.
Yeah, my past roles in the property development companies I've worked for and myself as well. Yeah, developing remotely. I always say the key to success in developing remotely is to have a good team at the other end.
Yes.
That makes life so much easier.
There are quite a few other things to consider as well. And, I mean, you and I both don't have a problem with it, but you're right. No. It's about the team who's there on the other side. Yeah,
well, I mean, you're doing a project in Perth, which couldn't be further away from where we live.
No.
Like 5 hours on a plane, whatever it is. Yet you're pretty comfortable with that because you're joint venture partner.
Yes, because of my joint venture partner. I'm very comfortable with that. Well, let's take a look. So I've actually made a list of things.
Oh, okay, that'd be cool.
But I'll let you unpack them and maybe give your opinion as well. So I've written down, Bob, diversification, as in investing in property development or developing in different states, allows you to diversify a little bit more, meaning other states might have different...
Yeah. It's diversification. It's sounding a little bit like financial planning, isn't it?
Yes.
Where they love to diversify your investments. Well, that's true. I mean, if you're doing more than one project, I mean, if you were doing like 3 projects and you're doing one in each state, what they're saying is if it goes a bit quiet in one state, maybe the other one's going up and then one counters the other, and that can happen.
This is what I'm saying. I wrote these down.
Oh.
Yes.
I was expanding on them.
Yeah.
Would you like me to be quiet and you just read?
No, because I've only just got a few ideas and I think that you probably would have a few more. But what about the tax benefits as well? I know for me being a New Zealander, it's more beneficial for me to develop in WA than other states. I remember my property accountant told me that. Yeah,
so you're right. Taxes. There's 3 main taxes that we have here, federal taxes, which is GST, income tax, capital gains tax. But then there's other, well, I'll call them a tax anyway, land tax and stamp duty. And that's certainly, stamp duty can vary quite a bit from state to state. Land tax can too, and that can be affected by the structure you have as well. And incentives. I remember, Victoria treats stamp duty differently on off-plan contracts. WA had some pretty big incentives during the end of COVID as well, to encourage like stamp duty relaxations and other things. I can remember once in Toowoomba, and I did a project in Toowoomba, the council who wanted to encourage, activity, more development, waived contributions, or at least they greatly reduced contributions for a period of time. And they can be pretty ugly, $30,000 a townhouse. So.
What gives the council the right to do that? Do they just
they
can
charge
decide?
And they can do whatever they like.
Yeah, but is it like we're going to do this for this year? We're going to do this for people doing X amount? How does that work?
Well, they were trying to stimulate the economy there, I think, and building construction, as you know, stimulates a lot of areas of the economy, not just the pure building or the builder or the developer. And so they to encourage further development. One of the things they did was greatly reduce the contributions. I can't remember whether it was for 6 months or 12 months, but contributions were something like $30,000 per townhouse. So if you're doing a 4-pack, it's an extra 3 buildings, assuming there was a house there, it's $90,000. If you drop $90,000 or even $50,000 off your costs, that goes straight to your profit. And so when you're working out your margin, you're getting the double effect. You're getting $50,000 off your cost, but $50,000 on your profit. And that could actually get a borderline project well and truly over the line to finance. So there's big upsides in that. That's just an example I gave anyway of councils or governments incentivising things and drawing activity to them as well. And it happens, different states and councils.
Bob, I wrote down here that another benefit would be spreading risk, as in diversifying across different markets. You know how a while ago Perth went through that, the lull, and some states don't. And when you develop in different states, you can make the most of the particular state that's doing well, can't you? Because at the moment, some people are finding it's difficult to find sites. And that's a bit of a throwaway subject, I think, as in every state has a place where sites are working, but potentially some states have a few more than others. Would that be correct?
Yeah, and I have seen people chasing the shiny object. I can remember back in, say, probably pre-2014, when the Perth market was really hot for a number of years. In fact, the average price of a house in Perth was the highest in Australia. It was more than in Sydney.
Really?
And now have a look at it. So probably from about 2010 or 2011 up to 2014, a lot of people developed in Perth who lived on the east coast simply because the market was really booming.
Right.
It did have a rather severe correction in around June 2014 because Western Australia is so much dependent on mining.
Yeah.
And, it's going through a mining boom, and when Western Australia goes through a mining boom, everyone's making money, and then it went quiet, then it dropped anything up to about 25-30%, and it's only in the last year or 18 months that it's actually come back and passed that. But what I'm saying is a lot of people chased the growth in Perth, and a lot of people in Sydney, when Brisbane was having a good run, they'll do that. In the old days, well, I'll say the old days, you could almost...
Was there power back then?
Yeah. We had candles.
Okay.
Yeah, I can remember studying at school under candlelight or kerosene lantern. But anyway, it was almost predictable. And I'm going back probably to the 80s now, so I'm going back a bit, 80s, 90s. Say Sydney had a bit of a boom, and then the heat would go out of the Sydney market, and let's say Melbourne didn't have a boom. The heat would go out of Melbourne, and then Brisbane.
Was it like a cycle?
It was fairly cyclical. And the same in the construction industry, because you'd find a lot of builders and contractors would, say, ride the market in Sydney when things quietened down. Let's say it was hotting up in Brisbane next or whatever. A lot of transient people would come up here and they'd build, a lot of tradies and that sort of thing. It was sort of predictable.
Do you see that happening now or not really?
There's a lot of outside influences rather than just the pure market. See, back then it was just the market.
Yeah.
Whereas these days, there's a lot of government interference in things. As you know, the government's interfering with stamp duty, putting taxes on windfalls, all those sorts of things. We had COVID, which was something purely...
The government did.
Well, the government had a huge incentive program at the end of it, but it only really helped part of the market and really threw things into them. Yeah, then we had the correction we had to have. So like a lot of outside influences, if you leave the market alone, it finds its own level. And probably in the older days, the markets were left alone more, a lot less interference.
Right, so there's a lot more interference. Now, do you know, just as you were talking then, I find that almost everybody that I talk to that's investing in property and then coming over to development, because that's what we do find. They start by investing and then they realise it takes too long and then they go on to developing. So if you're listening as an investor, give me a call when you're ready to start developing. But I've noticed lately a lot of people that I talk to, and I do talk to an awful lot of people about property development, are investing in WA. They really are, like over and above any other state right now. That's just conversations I'm having, and I suppose that's quite a generalisation. But do you think that that's happening more at the moment?
Well, it is happening more. Whether that's the epitome of where to invest or where to develop, but
no, that's investment. That's not developing.
Investment?
Yeah, investment.
Yeah. Well, that's normally triggered by the mining.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to make the joke sometimes that if you're investing in Western Australia, it's more about mining and commodities than it is about real estate, because if mining's going well, real estate goes well. Mining's not going well, real estate doesn't go well. And they don't have a big secondary industry for when the mining doesn't go well. If you think of a place like Queensland has a lot of mines and does very well out of the mining industry, but they have a huge tourism industry. Western Australia, it does have a tourism industry, but it's nothing like Queensland. It's got nothing to fall back on, really, at the moment.
I don't think I'd ever swim over the other side, over there. Way too many sharks.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, my goodness.
Gosh.
And another benefit of developing out of state is the expansion of your network. Yeah. Like you find... Well, you're going to find more people who are connecting to you and with you from the property development realm, and so the potential for more opportunities, because it's an opportunity game. Like I know, I'm going to say your name again, Connie. Like what an opportunist, what a connector, what a networker, Jeremy. There are people who in our community that you see them, they connect with people. Kaz, like they're making noises But especially, Connie, she's fantastic at connecting with tradespeople, with people everywhere. And I think if you develop out of state, then you make those connections out of state.
Yeah, I've made some great connections out of state when I've been developing. I did a retirement village in Bendigo some years ago now. And
you often refer to this one. Was it a favourite?
I liked it. It went well, but I often use it as a story because I was living in Queensland, developing in Bendigo, not even Melbourne. I mean, when I went there, I had to fly to Melbourne and then hire a car and drive up to Bendigo. But I didn't do that very often. So getting the approvals through was really, I had a really good planner surveyor down there that I used on that, and a good architect. The architect was from Melbourne, but it's only an hour and a half up. So he was really good on the design. He worked really well with the town planner. The town planner was a local in Bendigo, quite substantial, been around a long time, well connected in council. And that got me through the approvals fine. And I used a local builder who not long previously, probably 18 months earlier, had built another retirement village there. And so he was familiar with that. He was well priced. So during the whole construction phase, it was really the architect was dealing with the builder. Not so much me. I was getting reports, but didn't do much directly with the builder. During the approval stage, it was a really good town planner and the architect. So the architect was the linchpin there. Ben is his name. And I probably went down between starting to get the approvals and finishing construction. I probably went 5 times to Bendigo. And I could have gotten by on less. But I just felt compelled that I should go down and have a look.
I know even now when we visit the current retirement village in Tamworth, we've actually made some connections down there now. We tune up, we see a couple of Johns and this person and that person, go to the same restaurant and stay in the same place, and we have made a few connections there, and even the builder, you've made connections with those people, so that is a benefit, and maybe just expanding your network because they could bring you further opportunity is where that was leading.
Well, yeah, I mean, we got a great builder, but the builder was introduced by the marketing manager. And we spoke to over 30 builders on that project to get it right. And so that, I made a new connection, which is the marketing person who works for a big marketing company that we have, and yeah, he gave us a gun builder.
And another thing with developing out of state, especially if you're developing to keep, so you're developing into a rental market, you can choose areas to develop that have higher rentals. Mind you, rentals are pretty high everywhere at the moment from what you see on television.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, but and you could target like even infrastructure, like say, I've always done well developing near universities, for instance, hospitals too, because. And I've often done 4-bedroom townhouses near those institutions, because near a hospital we know that nurses are quite happy to shack up together, and so you get four bedrooms and 4 little en suites, and they are cracker rentals, And so I don't really care whether it's Queensland where we live or somewhere else. If that opportunity comes up, if that infrastructure is expanding, and I can get into it, I will.
And the other thing. You can go on a good holiday.
Well,
we need to go over and visit
claim it on tax too.
Yeah, exactly. Go over and visit my, visit my NDIS project in WA, and then we can pop down and see Coralie down in Esperance.
That's what I want to do.
Yes, go to Esperance. Me too. So what about the negatives, Bob? The negatives of developing out of state. I'm going to go with just maybe a bit of the unknown, having to trust people, and it's unfortunate in life that we can't trust everybody, but I'm sure that does happen when have you ever had that happen for you, that you've trusted somebody out of state? Oh, here we go.
I made a mistake trusting people where I live. What are you talking about? But
okay.
In the state, I mean, often you don't have those sort of referrals that you might have where you lived, from a trusted associate or a friend. And look, I guess I've been lucky, but I do some pretty solid due diligence before I engage somebody I don't know, whether it's local or interstate. I had a great experience, as I said, with the one I did in Bendigo, and currently that's good, and the same with you. But it is harder. Well, actually, no, I lie. I did have a problem. I had a problem with a builder in Victoria who did come recommended from an architect I knew, but turned out to me not good at all.
Not good.
Not good.
And actually,
had to get rid of him.
I'm knowing the site, I think, or I know of a development you've had where the builder wasn't doing what they said that they were doing, and
there was fraud involved. Even.
Yeah, the quantity surveyor wasn't actually
doing
the work.
He wasn't over his job properly.
You were just saying yes, but not checking in.
Paying claims that weren't legitimate, and there's false claims being made by the builder. I mean, had that been, close by to where I live, might have been there more often. Maybe that wouldn't have happened, or at least not to that extent. So that's an example. But always say, having a gun team at the other end is good, but we didn't choose a good builder. We thought we did, but that builder apparently was going through a lot of personal issues, but that you can't know about. But
another thing, Bob, is you probably have more of an idea on a market that's closer to where you live, and so there's probably a little bit more homework required. And I do know of some people that are developing out of state and they still go there prior to purchasing, just to get the feel, to understand, perhaps living on that side of the street's better than that side of the street in a patch, and just having that extra knowledge from being in the same state can be be very beneficial. Hey,
I'm thinking back to some of our mentoring students back to about 2014 now, going back, pretty nostalgic today, hey, going back in time all the time. But
come back, Bob.
Come back. But they wanted to develop in Brisbane because they considered the Brisbane market was on the move. They lived in Sydney where things were pretty expensive. And so they had a couple of trips up, and what they did was they lined up some architects, a couple of town planners. They did research on where they thought would be a good patch. They then track down the movers and the shakers agents, the agents that sell sites, and you can do all of that remotely. You can do that on the internet, telephone calls, and just the research you do online. And they set up a lot of meetings. They came up, spent a week, did that, went back, came back for another couple of days, and that was it. The place was nailed. Went and saw some open for inspections, projects other developers had done, talked to a range of consultants, marketers, got a really good handle on pricing. They already knew how to do a development, but it was now in a different state. And they found a site fairly quickly and started on that. And within probably 3 or 4 months of obtaining that site, another one came up through the same real estate agent. So next thing they're doing 2, and that just grew. They only intended doing 1 remotely. I think they ended up doing 9.
Well, there you go. Property Mastermind mentoring program. Start off doing 1, end up doing 9. How good. So another sort of not so, I mean, you've given a great example there of, in fact, I think it sounds like we're giving more examples on why you can rather than seeing it as a negative. I mean, we're just pointing out that there are a few things that could act as stumble blocks, but really they're not that bad. I mean, because you and I are both doing it, and you're right, it's just about the team. You know.
It could be that you have a project manager at the other end even. You know, it could be that much. And you might travel, you know, every second month, come up, go down, wherever you are. It can work well. The same story though, having good people at the other end.
But then why would you have a project manager when that fee, that's why we promote the mentoring program, because you
just to go to site inspections, not to manage the project.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Probably didn't use the right terminology, but somebody who can go to site. See, I use the architect in that one I was talking about in Victoria. So he wasn't managing the whole project, but he was managing the construction phase. So it depends what you call a project manager. I guess I was thinking more of during the construction phase, visiting the builder on site. You know, you don't want to be flying from Melbourne to Brisbane every week. And it's cheaper to pay somebody like an independent quantity surveyor, not the one that the financier has, or an architect. They could do contract administration and do it that way.
I'm reminded, Bob, of a guy you've referred to a couple of times in the podcast. And this would be something, if you are developing out of state, would be that FOMO thing. Where people worry that they're going to miss out and they're not at an auction and they start panicking and they buy anyway. And it can happen in your own state. But if you're not there, you know how an agent can make you believe that it's going to go well and it's going to go hot, and perhaps just not having that
local knowledge.
And just being on the ground. I'm talking about the guy that just bought overnight, and he was a wood duck and bought a shambles. But you know what it's like when you go. I've bought over the phone at auction, and I've bought at an auction. Over the phone, I definitely felt a little bit more not fully uncomfortable, but it was a different experience than being there. And I think that if you're developing out of state and you really want something, the emotion could take over a little bit more than reality. Would that be a case, do you think?
If it's a really cracker site and you think you got a strong chance of getting it, I'd even go there.
Oh, for sure.
You know, for, I don't know, $500 worth of airfares or whatever it is, I'd be there.
I remember the last auction we went to, which was earlier this year, that we bought at auction.
Yeah.
Oh, because Bob is very diligent on this is the final price, that it will not go over this because it doesn't work. So you just don't get emotional, you don't buy it. And it was, oh, crikey, there was 6 people bidding, but it dropped off pretty quick and went down to 2, us and somebody else. And it's just that feeling of, will you just stop bidding? We knew they would eventually, but crikey. I think we went, was it 20,000 over in the end, which was, we're talking pretty substantial dollars here. But that 20,000 was like, oh God, and that would have been the last bid, hey. But I wonder if you're not on the phone, you couldn't see that person, how they were bidding, see their reactions, their emotions, what they were like.
Or even if there was somebody bidding at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that one you alluded to before, where a person was 2 states away. The auction was held at night in the real estate agent's office. The person we're talking about only found out about the site that day, did very little due diligence, and here he was bidding at night on a site he didn't know much about, and you've got an agent on the other side telling you how the bids are going. You don't even know if
you could be lying in bed just watching Netflix.
Yeah,
bids are going well.
Oh, someone's just come in. They've banged it up 50 grand. Let's knock them out. Let's go 100.
Yeah.
There's probably no bidders.
Yeah.
No, I shouldn't say that. Real estate agents wouldn't do that.
I don't think. Well, Bob, so I think we've come to the conclusion that developing out of state is actually okay.
Yeah, it's very possible, and lots of people do it.
Yeah, well,
including ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. So don't be afraid of it. Really, it's about knowing what you're doing and having a good team, isn't it?
having a good team at the other end, yeah, and be prepared if you're choosing another area somewhere else to go spend a little bit of time there, become the local expert. It doesn't take much. You could do it pretty quickly, a couple of weekends, bang, you're done. Maybe even one weekend and a few other weekdays.
So before we close up on episode 102, just a reminder that 101 didn't happen because we're deciding whether it's Gary Vee or not, and that's a Hilary decision to make.
It's your decision, but I've got a feeling it's going to go towards what you're doing.
I think it's not going to be a Bob thing, or it's not going to be a property mastermind
Well,
thing.
I didn't earn it. I didn't fly to another country to line up Gary Vee like you did.
No,
so
exactly.
I don't deserve it.
But, it's a we thing. But the other thing is this week, we have spent the entire week filming our new Property Accelerator membership program. And
All brand new,
and it is going to be amazing. We've got getting started in property development. We've got small subdivisions, which I think
separate course on subbies.
is probably Australia's only subdivisions course. We've got Renovations 101, and we have the Performance and Mindset course, a full course.
To success.
It is epic. I spent a lot of time creating this course, so it's going to be fantastic.
When's it launching?
Probably in about 6 weeks from now.
Okay.
So what are we on? We're on 8th of June. This will come out 9th, 10th of June. Maybe
Late
about
July, end of July maybe?
Mid-July, I'm thinking.
Mid to late July?
I'm thinking mid-July. And I think I decided today that the first month will be $1. And my heart started to flutter when you said $1. Because I think once people see it, they'll be like, wow, this is amazing. It also gives you access to our live Q&A, which are every fortnight, which is live, not pre-recorded, so that's pretty cool. Yeah. Anyway, that's enough of...
That's what we've been doing.
That's what we've been doing. We were looking at cameras for a week. But anyway, that has been a great episode. I hope we've swayed you to think about developing out of state.
Don't be fearful about it.
No. And if you're interested in learning any more about what we do, reach out, propertymastermind.com.au or admin@propertymastermind.com.au, and we will love to have a chat with you. All right, bye for now.
See you next time.